I'm Anne Riddell, and welcome to Arts in the City. We love the fall. It feels like an exciting, fresh start, and that is definitely the case when it comes to New York's art scene. There is so much to see and do right now, including here at the Frick, just one of the places in our fall roundup. Donna Hanover has the details.
Some monumental events are making the fall art scene especially awesome this year. The Metropolitan Opera's lineup of 25 productions includes Porgy and Bess, which hasn't been done here for 30 years.
I loves you, Porgy, and don't let him take me.
This new production of the Gershwin classic premiered in London last year to rave reviews. The Gershwin estate specifies that all licensed performances of Porgy and Bess must be produced with an all-black cast. And this time, the star-studded ensemble is led by Eric Owens and Angel Blue. Also huge on everyone's arts list is the October 21st reopening of MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, which was completely closed for 4 months. There will be increased space, admission-free galleries at street level, and a new studio for performance, dance, music, and film. After the $450 million renovation, MoMA itself will be more modern. Who doesn't know the words, one if by land, two if by sea? Revolutionary War hero Paul Revere, who warned that the British were coming, was immortalized in the 1861 Henry Wadsworth Longfellow poem, Paul Revere's Ride. And he is being celebrated again at the New York Historical Society. He was a brilliant silversmith and so much more. The New York Comedy Festival, which starts with Stand-Up for Heroes on November 4th at Madison Square Garden, raising money with the Bob Woodruff Foundation to help veterans and military families. Jon Stewart, Bruce Springsteen, and John Oliver will be on stage. The Comedy Festival itself, which runs through November 11th, was founded by one of our favorites, Caroline Hirsch, and it will put on more than 100 shows across the city featuring more than 200 comedians. Back here on Lincoln Center Plaza, we want to mention that this is the 50th anniversary season for the Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center. The CMS travels the country and the globe doing great chamber music. Back here at home, we'll be treated to works by Mozart, Haydn, Schumann, Schubert, Brahms, and others this fall season. If Renaissance sculpture is one of your passions, the Frick has an exhibit of works by Bertoldo di Giovanni, a student of Donatello, the same master who taught Michelangelo. There are more than 20 reliefs and statuettes to take your breath away. Singer-songwriter David Byrne, best known as the frontman of the rock band Talking Heads, is heading to the Great White Way. He hit big with his musical Here Lies Love. Now, following a sold-out world tour called American Utopia, he's adapting it to the intimate Hudson Theater. Byrne will share the spotlight with 11 musical artists from around the globe. If you're picking up good vibrations about chances to catch great arts this fall, you might want to consider a crossover show by the American Ballet Theater. For several performances in October, the dancers will be working to the music not just of Stravinsky and Bochum, but also the Beach Boys and Tony Bennett. So it might be a chance for you to leave your heart not in San Francisco, but in New York City. I'm Donna Hanover for Arts in the City.
You've probably heard some of the buzz about the popular series The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. It's about a young woman trying to make it as a stand-up comedian. And who better to write for the fictional Midge Maisel than an actual comedian? Barry Mitchell introduces us to the multi-talented Alison Leiby.
I know that men like stupid girls, right? But I thought Joel wanted more than stupid. I thought he wanted to be challenged. You know what I mean? You two are gonna be together forever.
It's very fun to work on a show that people love. We love the show so much. I can't believe, that you get to work on it, and neither can I. It's great. I truly love it.
Alison Leiby is a stand-up comedian and staff writer for the Amazon Prime hit series The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, about a proper 1950s Upper West Side housewife who shocks her family by becoming a stand-up comedian.
Part of what I like about writing for Midge Maisel is that she speaks very honestly about her life and what she sees around her, and that's how I hope I approach my stand-up. I'm having a rough week because I did just find out my ex-boyfriend is getting married to someone else. I know. It's real weird because he's marrying a girl who looks just like me. Like, we look almost exactly alike. But it's kind of good because now I know it was my personality, so. A woman couldn't say a lot of the things that I get to say on stage, at least not to an audience that would accept them as comfortably, I think.
1960. An unmarried woman will take the pill so she can have as much sex as she wants. A married woman will just have a headache and call it a night.
But sometimes taking that and doing that and writing for a 1959 audience for a woman who's had a very different life than I have in ways makes me just think of jokes in a different way, and sometimes helps me when I'm doing my stand-up today in 2019 in front of a current audience. There are things that I definitely write that I wouldn't, for myself, that I probably wouldn't have had I not been writing for her. So the writer's room has 2 other stand-ups in it as well, and then there's 3 other writers who are not stand-ups but write different, come from different worlds, like playwriting and classic television writing. It's nice to kind of have this interesting melting pot, both personally and then also like stylistically with how people write. I write very differently than a playwright. But when you do hear one of the actors say a joke that you wrote and it lands and the room all laughs, there is, whatever show you're at, that's a very satisfying feeling.
We have to talk about you writing for Triumph the Insult Comic Dog.
Trigger warning. In this video, there will be the clear depiction of a dog pretending to be interested in what a college student is saying.
I mean, I grew up watching and loving Triumph. Writing for Triumph, you get to say the things that as a human being, I can't say. That puppet can say those things. But I remember writing one that he said, which was, Donald Trump looks like the one animal we've been testing all of our cosmetics on. And I remember I think that was the joke that actually got me hired.
Let's have a complete about face and talk about your charity.
Okay. I run a charity show. There's a charity called Distributing Dignity, and they get tampons and pads to women in shelters. And I put on a show called Night of Selfless Care at the Bell House in Brooklyn twice a year. Comedians come, we do a show, and the proceeds go to making sure that women in the tri-state area get tampons and pads in shelters. It's my #1 thing that I care about the most, and it's the most fulfilling part of my comedy career.
The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel returns for its 3rd season on December 6th. Our thanks to Stand Up New York. And to find out what Alison's up to,
you can follow me on Twitter at Alison Leiby. Everything is there.
The marvelous Alison Leiby, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're watching Arts in the City.
Up next, Neil Rosen has some Hollywood magic for us. 3 generations of the action franchise Shaft. In Talking Pictures today, he chats with Samuel L. Jackson, Richard Roundtree, and Jesse T. Usher about their new movie, now available for streaming.
Who is the man that would risk his neck for his brother, man? Can you dig it?
Since he first burst onto movie screens in 1971, Shaft, the cool private detective on a hot case in Harlem, has spawned several sequels, 3 remakes, and has influenced scores of other films.
I'm looking for Shaft.
Who's asking?
John Shaft Jr., your son.
My son? Junior?
Yeah.
The latest version switches the tone from action drama to action comedy and features 3 generations of Shaft. It stars Samuel L. Jackson as Shaft, Jesse T. Usher as his straight-laced son, who Dad is trying to teach the ropes to, plus the original Shaft, Richard Roundtree, is back too.
Boy, back in the day, we didn't need guns. All we needed was our bare knuckle.
Damn, Grandpa.
Oh, you can't be too prepared.
First of all, tell me, what's different shooting on the streets of New York now as opposed to 1970, 71?
To be real, with gentrification in Harlem, that has been the main change. I have, in my childhood, never seen so many white people in Harlem. That's real.
That was funny, because the day we came up here, we shot most of this movie in Atlanta, but when we did come here to shoot, like the scene where I'm coming out of the apartment building with him, getting ready to go confront these guys, and those ladies were sitting there. The morning we pulled up here to shoot that shot, the first 8 people I saw were white. And I was like, we in Harlem? For real? This is what's happening now? So it's changed in that way.
There is still a vibe in this city that will always,
well, New York
be.
always finds its way into your movie when you're here. You know, it's humming and it's part of it, you know.
The original, not really a comedy. Why was the decision made to make it, you know, like a comedy action film?
Don't know. That was just the direction they wanted to go in, you know, the new generation of it. When I talked to John Davis, he strictly wanted to make a comedy. And I was going, no, you can't just do a comedy with Shaft in it. He's not a buffoon, and there's a lot of mythology that goes along with being this character. So if it's anything, it has to be an action comedy, and the action part has to be very dangerous. It can't be hokey.
Do you guys remember the first time you saw the original Shaft? Like, where were you? Do you remember, like...
I was in Atlanta at Morehouse College.
Did you see it like when it first came out?
I saw it first run in a movie theater on a big screen.
Any impressions of what you thought when you saw it? Yeah.
Of course, everybody wanted to be that guy. You know, it's like, okay, I can't afford the coat. I'm not that cool, and I'm a sex machine.
Oh, what are you doing? The glass didn't break. Get in here, JJ, come on!
So what's it like playing that guy and you being what's it like playing Shaft and you inheriting the throne of being Shaft Jr. basically?
Oh my gosh, it feels great inheriting the throne and still having these two gentlemen alongside me. Like that was the moment for me. And I don't think it would have worked without them.
Sam, playing
it's always been, you know, a very cool and kind of heady situation to be able to step into that space and occupy it in my own way, because Richard is still here and he is still John Shaft, so I don't have to pretend to be him.
Did you ever think 50 years ago that you'd still be playing this character?
Hell no. I was happy with the year, and it took off, and I said, whoa, still.
Right on.
With Samuel L. Jackson, Jesse T. Usher, and Richard Roundtree, for Arts in the City, I'm Neil Rosen.
Lauren Ridloff is well known for her starring role on The Walking Dead and her Tony-nominated performance in the play Children of a Lesser God. She spoke with our Tina Beth Pina about her life as a multicultural woman and actor who just happens to be deaf.
This scene is one of my favorite scenes we've shot so far, because it really shows the audience and the world out there how capable deaf people are.
I just find it interesting how very natural this whole experience, acting-wise, has been for you. It's as if you were born to do it.
I come from a family that's very creative. My mother's an artist. My father was a musician. My sister is a dancer. I'm married to a poet. So I've always been surrounded by that creativity, and I've always felt this need to tell stories. I didn't know that I could act, but when I look back, it all makes sense to me.
When people interview you, a lot of it is about being deaf. And there's clearly more to you than just the deaf cultural aspect of you. You're African American, you're Mexican American. How did that influence you growing up?
My father is Mexican. He was the first child born here in America. His brother and sisters were all born in Mexico. My dad grew up in an environment where everyone spoke Spanish and English, so he's bilingual. When he found out that his child was deaf, his first thought was, oh, okay, I've got to learn another language to communicate with my child. So that's what he did. Learning sign language came from his family cultural appreciating bilingualism, and that affected me growing up.
Did you grow up eating certain foods or doing certain dances?
Yes, absolutely. My grandmother, my abuela, made the best enchiladas with mole sauce. Oh, that chocolate was so good.
Are you passing along that culture to your sons as well?
Absolutely. My boys, they're also Jewish. because their father, my husband, is a Russian Jew. So I hope that my boys don't have to explain their backgrounds as much as we have needed to today, right?
How proud are you to be multicultural? How proud are you to be Latina?
I love having an intersectional identity. I feel that allows me to reach out and connect with more people out there. Sure. There's more opportunities to share with other people and share something. We share experiences. I love that. It makes me feel like I'm a good storyteller.
Do you have any advice for young women who face the same situation as you, being a deaf child in a hearing world?
My advice to young women would be to stay true to yourself. And it is okay if sometimes you feel like you're not sure of how to behave or how to be or how to speak with a certain group of people. That's okay. You can be quiet at that moment and just observe, because that's good too.
In Book It Today, a novel that traces 3 generations of an American family. The guest book weaves together history, politics, and secrets that will keep you guessing. We sat down with author Sarah Blake. Sarah, thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is great.
So your book is called The Guest Book, and it is the story of multiple generations of the Milton family who are bound together, sort of for better and for worse, by this summer home, their private island in Maine. So let's start there. Who are the Miltons?
So the Miltons are an old money family that's, one of the families that sort of consider themselves the bastion of this country. They've been here since the 1600s. And this island that is one of the main settings of the novel was an island that the patriarch and the sort of first generation, Kitty and Ogden, bought in 1936, so in the middle of the Depression, off the coast of Maine. And it becomes, they're very clear that it's the kind of place that binds and defines them.
At the head of the family, as you said, you have Ogden and Kitty, and fairly early on in the book, there is a real tragedy that kind of propels a lot more that happens in the story. Can you tell us about that?
In the first chapter, we see the kind of life that Ogden and Kitty have in 1935, and Ogden is over in Berlin, and he is investing in German steel, while meanwhile back in Manhattan, his 2 sons and his wife are going about their day. And at the end of the chapter, something really bad happens to one of the children. And that sort of is a kind of nugget, as you say, that from there, the book kind of explodes open into what this family, how will this family now move forward? And it's important to say that this is the kind of family for whom some things are better off left unsaid.
So family secrets are really at the core of much of what's happening in the book. What drew you to that as a theme for the book?
I did grow up surrounded in the kind of silence that is so freighted. This idea of Kitty's, that some things are better off left unsaid. I mean, that was absolutely how I was raised.
I found the book very moving and also in some ways sort of haunting because of exactly what you're talking about, because I kept going back to things. They stayed with me for days, this sense of like, well, if so-and-so had just said this, that would have been different.
Right.
And is that what you were going for?
Yes. I mean, to me, that is the most delicious thing about a great book. It's the most delicious thing, when the reader is in possession of the truth.
How did you settle on the island as sort of the centerpiece of the book? How did you come to that?
Well, first of all, it's a great metaphor that, this family's place is an island. But it's also something that it is in my family. I do have, my family does have a place like that.
And is that something that you still have in your family, and do you still go back?
I still go back. I'm not an owner anymore, but it's still in our family. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So was this to some degree like a self-exploration?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It had to be in some ways challenging, I'd imagine, because there are so many plot lines going on and there's so many characters and you're jumping from year to year, generation to generation. Was that difficult?
Yes.
I
It was
imagine
really
it
hard.
was.
It was really, really hard, and it took a really long time.
How long did it take you to write the book?
8 years.
8 years.
It took a long time.
How do you feel about the Miltons? Do you like them?
That is a good question. I do, because I've like spent 8 years being them, you know. So I really
You really lived with them for a while now.
I really have lived with them. I do kind of love them because I see exactly who they are. I mean, I'm not them, and I am them. I mean, I made them.
Do you have any particular quirks or habits or things that you do that get you through the writing process?
Well, I have to have the really good cup of coffee every morning. It has to be really good.
Sarah, thank you so much for all your time today. I really enjoyed meeting you.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
We end today with a story that will delight and probably surprise you. While most teenagers are fans of pop tunes, 14-year-old Nora Brown devotes herself to traditional old-time music, and she is talented beyond her years. Ari Goldberg has more.
Wake up, my darling. My name is Nora Brown, and I'm 13 years old.
Nora Brown plays the kind of music not found on your typical teenager's playlist. Folk, old-timey, and mountain music are just a few of the names that this genre goes by.
I play old-timey music. If people heard that kind of music, they would recognize it as stuff from down south.
Old-time music was fashionable in the early 1900s, but over time its popularity has diminished. It was only by way of music teacher and musical historian Shlomo Pesco that Nora discovered the genre.
5, 6, 7, 8.
We were looking for a teacher when I was 6, wanted to learn ukulele. We found this guy named Shlomo Pesco, and he only taught old-time music. Basically, anything past the 1950s was pop music to him.
While ethnomusicologists trace the roots of American folk back to the secular and religious music of the British Isles, African Americans deeply influenced the sound as well, contributing complex, textured rhythms and one of old-time music's most iconic instruments, the banjo.
When scholars are looking back into history, trying to find the origins of the banjo, or looking for the banjo's ancestors, the drum is one of the things they'd look for. Then the second thing would be the dropped 5th string, which is down the neck, which is a drone string. Drone string means you don't fret it. I would say that's one of the very unique things about the banjo, because you're having a drone as you play it. Yeah, so if you listen for that note, you can hear it.
Old-time musicians in New York City are part of a nationwide community committed to playing and preserving the sounds of one of America's earliest music styles. Eli Smith is a central figure in local folk music circles. He is also a record producer, event promoter, and in 2009 he started the Brooklyn Folk Festival as a way to elevate the profile of folk and traditional musicians in New York City.
I was surprised there wasn't already a Brooklyn Folk Festival, because there was such a wealth of talent in the field of folk music, traditional music here in Brooklyn.
For Smith, reintroducing audiences to the warmth and personal connection found in the original material is as important as honoring the musicians and community that produced them.
Music writer Grail Marcus referred to the music as coming from the old, weird America. And I think the idea of weird leads back to sort of an idea about personal expression. And that's something that I think we're trying to perpetuate, here at the Jalopy and in our music community here in New York.
The Jalopy, Smith refers to, is the Jalopy Theater, a music school and performance venue in Red Hook, Brooklyn, dedicated to promoting folk music from America and all over the world. It is also where Smith first encountered Nora Brown.
I must have met Nora Brown 7 years ago or something like that, when she was really a little kid. And she just has absolutely flourished as a musician.
This summer, Eli and Nora worked together in preparation for the release of her first studio album, called The Cinnamon Tree, recorded in an old farmhouse in rural southwestern Virginia.
I think the album came together really well, and Nora's just done a wonderful job with this record.
Although Nora has gained well-deserved recognition for her contribution to old-time music, she's not a purist and appreciates music in all its various forms.
Somebody said it really well. Like, I think maybe Duke Ellington? I think he said, like, there's only two types of music, good and bad. If it's a good song, I like it.
Nora's album, Cinnamon Tree, arrives October 25th, but you can pre-order it now at jalaperecords.bandcamp.com. In the meantime, here she is again, playing the song, Darling Cora.
Last time I seen my woman.
That is our show for today. Thanks so much for watching. You can find more information on all the stories we featured on our website. And remember, we are online whenever you need your New York City arts and culture fix. I'm Anne Riddell. We'll see you next time on Arts in the City. For now, we leave you with more music from Nora Brown.
Gonna tear our still down. Them highwaymen are coming. Gonna tear our